The UK's moving towards a rapid reaction contingency capability. How are you looking to the future supporting 3 Commando Brigade and the lead Commando Group?
So we've got a number of steps or milestones on the route. The key route that we're really focused on at the moment, apart from the Joint Forces 2025, because that's that time frame horizon is further off. The one that's focusing our attention is the Littoral Strike Group, which we're going to develop by 2022. And that follows behind the Carrier Task Group CSG in 2021, which is primarily a fixed-wing strike focus from the sea, large maritime task group. And that's predominantly what the carriers have been bought for. Looking at LSG 22, what that's looking at is a mix of capabilities. So it's predominantly an amphibious output with the lead Commando Group and a large task group of LPDs and RFAs. And we need those ships because they've got docks in the back, and that's where our surface connectors, the landing craft utility, the LCVPs that can carry the stores and personnel ashore that we do, if indeed we're going to do that. The larger task group enables us to put together quite a punchy air assault force as well. So we would be looking at inserting 2 company groups in less than 6 hours at max range. Up to 81 nautical miles would be the ideal, and potentially further depending on the task. What we haven't done is develop the task group and the carrier aspects of that. So we will be doing a very small sort of test milestone events on the way through. So next year we'll be going through a number of exercises such as Joint Warrior, Ball Tops, building up the headquarters expertise in amphibious warfare again, as well as the troops and the ships. So building a very complex maritime capability that will involve submarines, carriers, escorts, amphib shipping, surface connectors and aviation. This is why we need specialist, qualified and experienced personnel, and that's what you get with ComATG's staff and capability and 3 Commando Brigade, and that is why we're unique in the Commando Helicopter Force.
And that's a global deployment capability, rapid deployment capability, desert, wherever?
Absolutely. In terms of priorities environments, we do obviously maritime amphib is kind of the bread and butter, that's the baseline. Then we have specialist environments such as the Arctic, high north. As an instance, I have a base 200 nautical miles north of the Arctic Circle called Clockwork. We deploy there each year for up to 5 months. We not only train our own naval personnel to fight and operate in temperatures down to -30, but we also, as part of the Joint Helicopter Command, train other aviation forces such as Apache and Chinook to operate in those environments which are very foreign to them. CHF's pretty unique. We also train our organic combat service support elements to do that, and they also provide some of that specialist training. But we've even got our own mountain leader, Royal Marine mountain leader, who enables all of that training, has some unique specialist skills to enable that. As an aside, next year is our 50th anniversary of operating with the Norwegians in the Arctic High North, and obviously it's a very strategically important area at the moment with what's going on in the world and Russia, etc. So operating with Norwegians, being able to interoperate and integrate with their forces is really important, and we also do that. The USMC also has a footprint out there, and we enable some of their training as well. So we take around 30 of their pilots and engineers per year, and we put them through our cold weather survival course, which they enjoy, particularly the ice-breaking drills. So there's some pretty neat faces coming out of holes in the ice.
Tell us how you've adapted the Commando Helicopter Force squadrons to support the UK's rapid reaction global deployment capability? Yeah,
absolutely. So there's a spectrum of operations that we look to. So the high-end war fighting is the most demanding. So we train towards that, and that will be the Joint Forces 2025. But there's also the most likely. So things that politicians and defence want us to do as soon as possible. So 80% of my force are at very high readiness. So we can move, and we are trained and configured to deploy anywhere globally, either on land or sea, and indeed we could do land convoys cross-continent, or even military air transport anywhere in the world in less than 5 days, and usually we beat that. In order to do that, because we have got quite a large footprint, what we did was we looked at faster, further, lighter, and what does that mean to the structure of CHF? How can we do it better? And so what we've done is develop the units of action, and that fits quite neatly into the future commando forces and what they want to do in terms of forward presence at range, and the development of the special purpose task group. And this essentially tailored commando units, sizes anything between 50 and 250, that are forward based on some of the RN shipping. And it could be the Arctic High North, it could be the Middle East, just wherever defence wants us to have an influence, or wherever there's potentially some sort of flare-up that we have a vested interest in. And so the units of action that we've developed are the basic building block are the flights of aircraft. So imagine 4 Merlin or 3 Wildcats, and they could be separate or blistered together. But uniquely in CHF, from the combat service support units, we will also add to that unit of action, refueling capability, force protection using WMIC, or if the threat's even higher, Jackal vehicles which are protected and have lots of weapons on them. And are driven and operated by our own Royal Marines within CHF. We've also got Mobile Air Operations Team, which are essentially Commando Helicopter Force's advanced forces, so they'll go in with the first waves of any troops and even SF to set up landing sites and control the ingress and egress of aircraft. Addition to that, we have specialist signallers and a whole raft of others that are part of the unit of action, and we will tailor the unit of action to whatever the demand is, size, shape, scale and threat of the job in hand. So that's one aspect that we've transformed, whilst also transforming and fielding the Commando Merlin and the Wildcat. So it's been a very busy time.
And the near future movements of the Commando Merlin?
Yes, so A-Flight 845 Naval Air Squadron are doing all their preparations to embark on the Queen Elizabeth. So they're very excited about that. So that's going to take them out to late November, and then they'll be deploying straight into the Arctic. And then we'll have a number of amphibious exercises next year. 847, I've just recovered from a Joan of Arc deployment. That's where we've been, over the last 2 years, developing our interoperability with the French Navy. And that is part of the Lancaster House Agreement for the Combined Joint Expeditionary Force with the French. So we have stress tested our ability to send operational capable units on board the French carrier. And those guys have been on board with the French Navy, and they also had some USMC embarked as well, and have operated as far out as the Middle East, even Guam and back. So that was 5 months. They did in the region of 24,000 nautical miles as part of that trip, visited 13 countries, and operational tasking and support to exercises, as well as defence engagement and so on. So it really showed and demonstrated the utility of a unit of action, even at a relatively small scale.